Everyone knows that Harry Potter is a young wizard. Everyone knows that the boy who lived was 11 years old at the moment when our beloved saga began, and when he started to receive letters from Hogwarts. Most of the young heroes were those very students of Hogwarts, so, as in case of Harry Potter, their age wasn't difficult to deduce, and yet, in the case of other characters, calculating the age might not be as easy. The twisted plot does take its toll. Still, today, we, as real fans, are going to dig deep and figure this matter out. So, let's begin with the all-adored family of Weasleys. The age of Ron, Ginny, Fred and George is obvious. The King of Quidditch is 11 years old. The only daughter of Arthur and Molly, 10, while the twins already have 13 years of living in their curriculum vitae. The oldest of the students of the family, Percy Ignatius Weasley, is 15 years old. Charlie, or Charles Weasley, who is very much interested in dragons, whom he studies in Romania, is already 18, while the oldest child of the bunch, Bill, has already had his 20th birthday. We can see that the married couple was very laborious in their family matters and caring about the future of their family. That is probably why they had so many children, with Molly almost continuously giving birth in the first decade of the marriage. Let's note that we also have the information about when Arthur and Molly were born. They are 41 years old at the moment when the first film takes place, and as we see, they had their first child right in the beginning of Molly's third decade. Not too late and not too early, especially considering that Molly and Arthur were probably thinking about marriage long before they turned 20. But let's go further. Let's recall the contemporaries of Molly and Arthur when they were studying witchcraft and wizardry, being in a house of Gryffindor. Bellatrix Lestrange, a member of the House of Slytherin, was only 1 year younger than Molly. To be frank, Bellatrix's age can still be called an unsolved mystery though, since we don't have any canonical references to it in the published works. However, considering the fact that this was mentioned in Joanne Rowling's notes and later on lexicon, we can think of Bellatrix as of a woman who is 40 years old in the first book/film and 46 years old in the sixth one, in the year when her daughter, Delphine, was born. Bellatrix was the oldest child in her family, with Andromeda Black, aka Dromeda Tonks, being the middle child. She was either 37, 38, or 39 years old in the first book. The last child of Droella and Cygnus Blacks, Narcissa Black, was 36 years old. As we know, she married Lucius Malfoy and gave birth to her only child, Draco Malfoy. Lucius was 1 year older than his wife, so it is safe to say he was 37 years old when his son, Draco, was 11. It is interesting to note that Lucius was one of the only Death Eaters, the age of whom we know for sure. Okay, so we mentioned Bella, Lucius, and what about Bartimius Crouch Sr., aka Barty, an influential British Ministry of Magic official? We know that he was only 29 years old when Harry started his magical studies, which makes him one of the younger, if not even the youngest, Death Eater of the year. During the events in Godric's Hollow, when Harry's parents died, Barty was only 18, a year older than Regulus Black, who died a year later. And what about other famous Death Eaters? For example, Mulciber and even Rosier. We know that in the year 1975, they were studying at Hogwarts, learning some advanced spells, definitely not being mere kids. They were way older than that, and while Rosier died even before the saga began, Mulciber was around 37 or 38 when the boy who lived became a first-year student. Another villain the age of whom we can calculate, albeit quite roughly, was Antonin Dolohov, one of the original Death Eaters, born many decades before the events of the books and films, presumably 6 or 7 decades to be a bit more exact. And now the dessert, the age of Voldemort himself. Easy to count, difficult to make a total conclusion. The confusing element here is his body peculiarities. I mean the fact that he had multiple physical manifestations during his life. Still, formally speaking, he was 64 years old in 1991. Tom Riddle, Voldemort's father, was born in the year 1905 and could have celebrated his 86th birthday in the Philosopher's Stone. At the same time, Voldemort's father's father would have been 111 years old and his granny 108. Touching the topic of the cousin marrying pure-blooded Gaunts, Merope would have been 83 and Morphin 91, with Marveler could have boasted the age of 119 years, even more than Dumbledore himself, and yet only Dumbledore could survive to the noted date, not only being 110 years old, but also having sane mind and body. A great man he was, this Dumbledore. His brain was still sharp, while many of his old friends couldn't say the same thing. Alphys Doge, for example, while sane, wasn't as active as he used to be, just like Muriel Weasley. Horace Slughorn was, just as presumed, a few years or couple of decades younger than Dumbledore. Still, he was pretty old, and it is very likely he was born in the 19th century. A younger brother of Albus Dumbledore, Aberforth Dumbledore, was 107 years old when Albus was 110, with both being active members of the Order of Phoenix. Talking about the Marauders, all of them were or could have been 31 years old at the start of the saga, including Remus Lupin, whose eventual wife, Nymphadora Tonks, was only 18 then. The age of other prominent members of the Order, Alistair Moody and Kingsley Shacklebolt, is unknown, while we can presume that the former was way older than the Marauders. And the Marauders themselves, by the way, shared the age with Severus Snape, 31 years old when Harry was 11. Snape was young, and yet he was smart enough to be a dean. Hagrid, on the other hand, was twice as old as Snape, boasting 62 years of age, and both the energy and the naivete of a younger lad. By the way, he was 3 years older than a serious, senior lady, Pomona Sprout. We should, however, note that in the magical world of Harry Potter, calculating age can sometimes indeed cause a great challenge. Take for example Hermione Granger, a frequent user of Time Turner. For her, the second year could have easily lasted way longer than that, making her biologically older than her peers. And the oldest wizard whose age was known to us was Nicholas Flamel, a gentleman who used the elixir of life to live for at least 665 years. And wait, how could we not mention Minerva McGonagall? The Scottish gal was a close friend of Dumbledore, and therefore many could deduce they were of roughly the same age. But no, she was about 5 whole decades younger than the headmaster of Hogwarts. There is, however, a discrepancy between her portrayal on the site called Pottermore and the one in films, specifically in A Fantastic Beasts, where she was said to be a professor at Hogwarts even before she was canonically born. Therefore, the question of McGonagall's age still remains open for discussions. And what do you think about her age? Is there some kind of an error here? A joke? Or maybe something else? Oh, and by the way, what do you think about the films from the Fantastic Beasts series in general? Write your opinion in the comment section. And if you don't want to share McGonagall's fate and to look as old as she was at the age of 36, click the like button and subscribe to this channel. Thanks for your attention, ladies and gentlemen, and see you in our other videos.